Hello, everyone. My name is Maureen McDowell. I'm the founder and executive director of Keep St. Pete Lit. We are a literary arts organization based in St. Petersburg, Florida, and this is episode 32 of Typewriter Talks, where we feature Tampa Bay authors and kind of get inside their brains to see about their writing process. And today we have Gianna Russo. Did I say that right?
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. She is a poet, editor, teacher, writer, and tell us the new good news.
I have been appointed by Mayor Castor of Tampa as the first wordsmith of Tampa. And it's a great honor. I'm humbled and I'm excited, and I've already started doing some projects for the city that I'm excited about.
That's so exciting. That's wonderful.
It is.
It's so interesting when you get new leadership. Sometimes we have dry times where the arts and culture aren't featured into public life, but then you get a new leader and they're like, that was like one of the first things she did. And I saw she's doing the crosswalks.
Yes.
The Read movement. Am I saying that right? I think so. J. Giroux and for the kids with
and one of the things that we're working on is I'm part of the Arts in the Parks program. So the next project that's coming up, I believe it'll be the next one, is I'm going to be working with people in the neighborhood that is adjacent in some way to Columbus Drive in Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have people writing about the meaning of that place.
Oh, cool.
And then hopefully I'll be extracting some really great lines from what people have written, and hopefully they will be stamped into the sidewalk.
I love that.
It's going to be fun. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, because you've seen the poetry when it rains, where the poetry shows up, but this is more permanent.
Yeah. Yes.
I love that. What a lovely placemaking thing to do, and people can bring their families, and then generations later, if the sidewalk lasts that long, but they can bring their grandkids, and that's such a lovely
and I feel really suited for it because I feel like I'm a poet of place. A lot of my work is now, it didn't used to be, but it's now really centered in Tampa or this area or Florida, because I'm a Tampa native. And so this is exciting to me.
Yeah. I love and taking poetry off the page,
Absolutely.
to really engage the community, because poetry kind of has a bad rap of being a little stuffy or unapproachable.
It really does. And what's really amazing to me, I've discovered this as a teacher. All kinds of people are writing poetry, but you don't know it because they don't identify themselves as poets, and maybe they're only writing for their family, or they're writing maybe even for themselves. But there's tons of people out there that are writing poetry, or even people that want to, and they might not exactly know how to get started. So that to me is one of the greatest joys of being a teacher and being involved in the community. And I think it's going to play out in this position as wordsmith too.
Oh, I'm so excited for you. They made a good choice.
Thank you, Maureen.
So what are you working on personally with your own poetry right now?
Well, just to back up, because I'll preface it. Last year, my book One House Down came out, which that was a great achievement. And I want to give people who are writing and maybe a little bit discouraged about the sort of public acknowledgement that they're getting. My first book, it took me 15 years to get it published. Wow. And to me, the word that all writers should embrace is perseverance, because I do think if you keep persevering and you keep training yourself and growing, that something is going to come of that. So the second book, which came out last year, One House Down, that was 8 years after the first one. So again, quite a long time. And when the book came out, it came out in October. And, we had a few months, and I was really kind of floundering, like, what am I going to do now? What am I going to write about? I really was sort of at a loss, and I started writing some poems, but in my mind, I was calling them like one-offs. Like I didn't see them as part of a collection at all. So I've kind of been floundering with that for most of this year. And a really amazing thing happened to me, which is last year, I teach at St. Leo University, and last year I was awarded a sabbatical for this fall. Amazing to me that it ended up, the timing being the way that it was. Wow. That I happened to have this time off, during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So I had another project planned. It was a nonfiction project that I was going to work on during my sabbatical, but once I started to get into it, partly because of everything that's going on in the world and the country and all that, I really couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. And then I was like kind of panicking, like, oh my gosh, I've got this sabbatical. I've got to honor the sabbatical, and I've got to honor the time that I've been given to write, especially right now when so many people are struggling in all kinds of ways. I have got to make this count. So I, again, being intimidated,
no pressure.
No pressure. Yeah, I put all this, it always comes from me putting pressure on myself, but I mean, lots of people do that. So I thought of this phrase that I had learned by reading an article by Arianna Huffington, and the phrase was too small to fail. Oh. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start back with some poems, and I'm not going to put pressure on myself. I'm going to do something that is too small to fail. Mm-hmm. What can I do? And somehow or another, I came up with this idea that I'm super excited about now, that I'm happy I'm sharing, because I want everybody to jump on it who wants to. The idea was to take the month, the number of the months. So I started October 1st, so that would have been 10. Mm-hmm. And then the number of the day, the 1st. And so 10 plus 1 is 11. So I thought I'm going to write an 11-word poem.
Oh, I love that.
And the next day, I'm going to write a 12-word poem, and I'm going to try to write a poem a day for the month of October. Mm-hmm. And it panned out. It panned out, and they're not all winners, but there's some poems there that have something to them. And I ended up calling them dailies. So to me, I invented a new form, the daily.
I love it.
Yeah, me too. And so when I finished in October, I was flabbergasted that I had actually done this, because I've never written a poem a day, ever. I mean, I'm a very slow writer. And then I thought, oh gosh, let's see if I can do it in November. So now I'm in November, and I'm still doing it. And then I'm going to see if I can do it in December. And then I will feel like I've really honored my sabbatical. And I may have enough really good poems that I'll have another book, which will be amazing. That's awesome. Given how long it takes me to make a book. Oh. So yeah, that's what I'm working on right now, and it's pretty exciting. And they're little tiny poems, and little poems are they're hard to write, I think, because every single word has to count. I mean, you cannot have any room for fat at all, and that's been a challenge. And the other challenge has been in One House Down, I was really wanting to deal with issues of the world. Mm-hmm. So a lot of that book deals with entrenched racism in the South and in Florida and in Tampa. Some of the book deals with economic inequality. Some of the book deals with gun violence. Some of the book deals with people living on the street. I have poems that speak to all of those. So to me, those were, big, heavy issues. And I found when I started on these dailies, most of the time, I really couldn't get into something that big and do it justice in such a tiny little space. So I had to reshift my focus a little bit and be okay with writing, a poem about an owl. And so I still have a little bit of my social justice issues that I'm interested in, but some of the poems don't have that, and I had to be okay with that too. So
I think it's so fascinating that, you are being innovative. you know, you saw that maybe you were stuck and your normal ways of working weren't working. So it's good because somehow we think, okay, I've got it figured out. I know how to be a writer. But then depending on different times in your life and different circumstances, like I talk to friends that have children and their time is limited, so they're writing shorter poems. And if you're so stuck on how you need to be as a writer, there's not room for the innovation. And I love that you brought that up. And I love the concept of dailies, and I love short poems.
You do?
I
Cool.
mean, Langston Hughes is like the master of it. And think about Gwendolyn Brooks, We Real Cool. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
Master of short poems. So I think, and when we have our Poetry Up a Mic, I'll say to students, like, you don't have to be writing long poems to be a poet. And so we'll have like a lightning round, like quick
cool.
Come up and have prepared and think differently. Because some of these kids, their newer poets, bless their hearts, their poems go on. They're like manifestos, and they go on and on and on. And it's like you have like 10 poems just in that one, ramble. I don't want to call it that, but sometimes so thank you for sharing that. And I'm excited.
Yeah. I'm gonna I'll send you the form, and you can share it with whomever you would like. Talking about contemporary poetry right now, what I love about it so much is that people are embracing these relevant issues. There's no more, you may not remember this term, but people of my generation will remember the term navel gazing, that poets were navel gazers. They looked down at themselves, and that's what they wrote about. And it was very sort of, self-contained and self-focused. And I don't want to be that kind of poet. And that's what I like about so many of our young poets now, it being led by poets of color and, Hispanic poets and people who have been marginalized in certain ways. They're the ones that are leading the charge. And I really absolutely love that. And I admire it. But I'm finding it a little bit intimidating. And I know I've used that word a lot already.
I know.
but these little dailies, they're not cut out for that for the most part. I mean, there are little whispers here and there, but thank you for saying that. And I think as a teacher, it is, I'm gratified by the fact that I did find a way, because, part of my role and our roles as teachers is to mentor our students in how to overcome these roadblocks that you're going to find in your writing or whatever it is that you're doing. So I'm really happy to be walking the walk so that I can talk the talk.
Yeah, that's hard. Like, you can do it, and you're feeling right and blocked yourself.
Yeah.
Like, am I an imposter in this? I get it. I mean, and this is not, I know a lot of writers that are just, they're not writing. Like, it's hard right now. Like, there's and we're so, I think by nature, very sensitive, mostly creatives, and picking up on the vibes of this crazy world we're living in. And but.
Well, and it's hard to concentrate.
Yeah.
It's hard to, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No,
I didn't mean to, but it's so hard to concentrate. And that's why when I gave myself permission with this wonderful phrase of Arianna Huffington's, make it something that's too small to fail. That was like, oh, okay. I can do a 12-word poem, and it doesn't have to be about, whatever, it's something heavy. It can just be a little tiny thing. So I have some of those. I don't know if you want me to share them with you or not, but I do have a couple of those.
Yeah, let's do that at the end. Let's share them. I think it'd be lovely. And I think that we live in such a bombastic world, especially in the United States. Everything has to be big and flashy and, huge price tags. But I think some of the most beautiful art is in the simplistic, about the owls and about nature and about like just having a good cup of tea. And I think it doesn't have to always be these big, huge themes, because most of life isn't these big, huge themes. Most of are these smaller, intimate moments. And I think,
I think your point about our being in a bombastic world and country is so well taken, that it's kind of a relief to take a breath, and that's not part of it. you're doing something quieter, something, I don't know if quieter is exactly the right word, but it's not bombastic, let's put it that way. And it really is a little bit of a relief. And I feel like we need it so badly right now. All of us have been buffeted by this year. We've just been, we've been punched, and some much worse than others. Some have really, really suffered. And of course, if you're an empathetic person, you're feeling for those people, even if you're not going through it yourself. So yeah, to have these little moments where we're not having to constantly be facing all of that, I think is nice.
So tell us about who are your favorite writers?
Well, okay. So one of the persons that I thought about doing these dailies, and I'll name some others too, is Ross Gay, because when you look at his work, a lot of his poems are long, skinny poems where there's just one or two words per line, or maybe 3. So on these dailies, I limited it to 2 words per line. So that reminded me of Ross Gay. The other reason I love Ross Gay, absolutely love his work, is that he, especially in his book, Catalog of Unabashed Gratitude, he talks about gratitude. He tries to find, something good. and yet these are not goody-goody poems. These are poems that oftentimes have death and suffering and something harsh going on, but he's able to moderate, kind of the horror of the world with, I can still find something joyful. So he's definitely a favorite. I love Ada Limon. I love what she's doing in her work right now. And I also love Natalie Diaz. And what I'm really thrilled about with her is how she's using form, and she's turning form, into a vehicle for saying, some really important stuff about these kinds of issues that I mentioned before. Oh, I've absolutely got to mention, some of my mentors. Peter Meinke has been a mentor for me, especially not just his work, which I love. And, he's a new formalist, and he's writing in a traditional verse, but it doesn't sound like that. If you didn't know that, you wouldn't know that you were listening to a sonnet or whatever. But what I really have loved about Peter, because I've known him now for, probably 40 years. What I've loved about him is that he has mentored me in how to be a poet in a very gracious and humble way. He is not, he's not an attention grabber. He's not interested in all this fanfare and it's me. No, he's not like that. And I have really learned a lot from him by watching how he conducts himself. So he's a big mentor. Another wonderful mentor who I, have to credit with helping me face difficult things in my poetry is Erica Dawson. Erica, she was really supportive of me when I was in the MFA program at UT, and always took whatever I wanted to work on and showed me how I could craft it and make it better. And then of course she's got, all these great books, and her most recent one is the book-length poem, When Rap Spoke Straight to God. Wait a minute, did I say it backwards? Uh-oh, Eric, I've got to go get the book. I think I might have transposed God and rap. But anyway, it's a terrific poem, and she's just grabbing all of these issues by the throat and rattling them and shaking them up. So those are some of my favorites right now, but some of the older poets that I've always loved. I love Emily Dickinson. She was such a groundbreaker. And yeah, small poems, but also dealing with really significant issues. They're not fluff, not a one of them. Love her. And I think I kind of came of age as a poet with Anne Sexton.
Yeah.
Her work dealing with her own struggles with mental illness and breakup of her family, and who am I as a person, and she just would knock these things out. And again, doing a lot of it in formal verse. So those are some of the favorites, but I have a lot of favorites.
What would be, what is a typical day like for you as a writer?
Oh, great question. Okay. Well, I'll preface it by telling a little story that about 30 years ago, maybe even longer, I was raising my two children, and I wasn't writing at all. As a matter of fact, I didn't write for 7 years after I had my first child. My second is 2 years older, 2 years younger. So there was that long period, but I was involved in a number of different writing groups. One of them that went on for 12 years. Those people are the people that helped me learn to write, Sylvia Corbello and Dionisio Martinez. But anyway, one day this man said something to me about writing, your typical writing day. And I said, well, I'm not really writing right now. And he said, well, if you're not writing every day, you're not a real writer. He just made that pronouncement. And I kind of took that into me and thought, well, I guess I'm not a real writer. But I have come to disagree with that assessment. So my day right now, I'll tell you, because during my sabbatical and during my summers and a lot of times on Sundays, those will be the times that I write. I don't write every day. And sometimes I don't write every week or even every month. I've done that too. But the thing is, remember I said perseverance is the key. I always come back to it. It's just part of who I am. So right now in my sabbatical, I've been getting up, not at a particular time, but I usually wake up anywhere between 6 and 7. And generally I'm getting up and I'm crafting the poem and letting it sit. And then I go about my business. I just took an online masterclass with Billy Collins, and Billy Collins said that he sticks with a poem until it's done. Not necessarily in one sitting, but he doesn't move on to another poem until that poem is done. And so I've been keeping that in mind because I haven't always been like that. I've been kind of keeping it in mind and seeing if that's how I want to work. Instead of working on a couple of things simultaneously. And I'm not sure if I'm going to go that way, but it's been interesting to kind of try it and see what it feels like. So I generally will go on with my day. I like to write late in the afternoon, like between 3 and 5, after my nap.
You're so refreshed.
Right, exactly. I like to get up and write a little bit during that period of time. And then off and on through the day, and sometimes during the evening, I might look at some other poems, or I might maybe look at an article about writing, or look at this, like I said, I did the master class. So I might be trying to do something else, or it might even be taking a walk or working in the garden. All of those things nurture me as a writer. But on the sabbatical, I've been writing pretty much first thing in the morning. I don't know if I can sustain that once I go back to teaching in January, because typically I get up in the morning and I hit the ground running. I get dressed and I go straight to school. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how all this plays out in January.
Well, hopefully you already have a book by that time.
Yeah, maybe I'll already have a book.
And it'll just you'll be revising it. So what would you say, what advice would you give your younger writer self?
My younger writer self? Okay. I guess the first advice would be, if at all possible, get your MFA earlier than age 59. Because that really, really transformed me as a writer, and I think made me a better writer, made me more confident, certainly better read. But it wasn't in the cards for me. I was a self-taught writer. Like I said, I was part of this critique group with Sylvia and Rhonda Nelson, Phyllis McEwen. I mean, a lot of Tampa writers, and they taught me how to write, which was fantastic. But I learned a certain kind of discipline, and I also got exposed to writers I wouldn't have probably chosen through going through the MFA. So that would be the first thing. The second thing was be a little nicer to yourself and not so harsh and so tough on yourself. The third thing would be try harder to get individual pieces published, and don't let the rejections destroy you. Don't let the rejections destroy you, which I did for many years. And so I'd send things out and I'd get rejected, and then I wouldn't send anything else out for 6 months or even a year. I mean, that's what I did, because I just took it to heart too much. And I don't anymore, but I did. And of course, people would say, you can't take it to heart. But when you haven't had many successes, it's easy to take those rejections to heart because they're predominating. You know, I think it's only through some small successes that build confidence, at least for me. Maybe it's different for other people, that, you know, I became able to handle those rejections and realize that, you know, most of the time it really doesn't have anything to do with you. People say that, and now as an editor,
it depends on what they're looking for at that time. It depends on who they published. I mean, there's so many factors.
There are,
you know. I get that. So a couple more questions and then we'll hear your work. What are you reading right now? Do you read predominantly poetry, or do you also do fiction? Do you read across genres?
I read across genres. I'm reading a novel called I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. I'm reading that novel. I'm also reading, believe it or not, because I was going to work on some nonfiction, and I still will eventually. I'm finishing Nabokov's memoir called Speak Memory, which, oh my gosh, that book was recommended in Mary Carr's craft book on writing memoir. She recommended it, and she sang its praises, and so I decided I would look at it. You know, I've only read Lolita, and I don't know if I've read any of his short stories, but I've read Lolita, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to try it. It's long, but it is so incredibly rich and so beautifully written. So I'm reading that, and I'm reading some poems by friends who have sent me things here and there, and you know, we're talking about them. And that's pretty much what I'm doing right now.
So is Yellow Jacket Press on permanent sabbatical?
Well, yes and no. Here's where we are. We're still in existence, but we are probably not going to go back to doing chapbooks, at least not for the foreseeable future. But we are going to continue to do small projects. And so one of the things I wanted to mention was the project that we just finished at the end of last year, and it's just kind of getting out into the world now. It's an anthology. I'm going to show you a picture of it. Here.
Oh, lovely. Chasing Light.
Chasing Light. And the anthology is based on some vintage photographs that were done by a renowned pair of brothers, a couple of photographers, who documented really the growth of Tampa and to some extent the Bay Area, but mostly Tampa. They're called the Burgert brothers, and their archive of I think it's close to like 60,000 photos. Maybe more. Their archive is stored in the Hillsborough County Public Library, and most of it has been digitized, so you can go on to the library website and see them. So the project that Yellow Jacket did was in conjunction with the library, and we asked poets to go into the archive, pick a photo that spoke to them, and write something to go with it. And so in this anthology, we've got almost 50 poets from across Florida. who have contributed. And I really like the way it turned out. I edited it, and I really like the way it turned out. And I love the work that people submitted. And some of the photos are so unusual, and some of them are a little like you wouldn't, where I would go, I don't think I'd pick that, but somebody picked it and they wrote a really interesting poem about it and brought something out in the photo that I didn't even see because of the way they saw it.
Yeah.
So
I love ekphrastic writing for that.
yes,
We've
me
done
too.
A lot of stuff around that. We went into the archives of the MFA 3 years in a row for our Sunlit Festival and had writers write about the photographs, and then they did a display at the MFA with the writing. And
That had to be
cool.
so great.
Yeah, it's really neat because you could have picked one photo and had 50 writers and they would all write something completely different about one photo.
Exactly.
That's what's so cool about ekphrastic writing.
It really is.
And so
to get back to your, I'm sorry, to get back to your question, those are the kinds of projects I would like to do. Maybe one big project a year. I don't know what our next one will be, but I'm sure it's going to come to us in some way or another. Someone's going to have an idea and somebody's going to want to do something, and we'll do it.
I love it. I love that. That's cool.
Thank you.
Kind of waiting for the press to decide what's the next project for the press. Yeah, and then it'll attract whatever it wants to do. So one more question. What would be your holy grail piece of writing advice?
Oh, Lord.
No pressure.
Read as much as you can.
Yeah.
I know it's not original. Everybody says it, but it's because it's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's a cliche because it's true.
Yeah.
Read as much as you can.
Yeah, I agree. And that's one thing that's been lovely about the pandemic. I hate saying that, putting pandemic and lovely in the same sentence, but it's been quieter time. Like those of us, obviously, I'm in a place of privilege. I have a job, I can pay my bills, I have a stable housing, but the idea that you have extra time to read and you're not so busy, it's been a blessing. So
yes, I agree.
So let's hear some of your dailies.
Okay. And I have my book here too, so whatever you want to do is fine. Should I do those, or should I do something from the book?
You can do whatever you want. It's
okay. Well, I'm going to start. I've got a couple of ones in the book that I want to share with you so that you can kind of hear the difference when we go to the other ones. I was looking through here and I forgot I had a little Thanksgiving poem. So this is One House Down by Madville Press. The phenomenal Kim Davis is the publisher, and their focus, the press's focus, is on works that center on place. So I love that. So this is called Thanksgiving Eve at Family Dollar, and it's set at the Family Dollar store on Nebraska Avenue here in Tampa. My lucky day off. Thanksgiving Eve is August hot. Hitchcock & Sons is hand-painting the white fence of Family Dollar, tar in the truck cauldron roils, mulch in the wheelbarrow steams. One son in unlaced boots makes the white outlines of parking spaces pristine. One son lays sod along the edge of the lot. In the shade, their three little kids draw cartoons on the new blacktop. What's it like to be Hitchcock & Sons? I don't have to pull a brush across the fence, but my worries pile up like dirty spoons. Maybe Hitchcock & Sons are finally out of debt, their big family driving in. Once my son found a $100 bill right there. At home, my mom's platters and silver. I want something polished for Hitchcock & Sons. I want something polished for myself. I back out, cheap drip pans and tinfoil rustling, 2 bags of ice melting towards Thanksgiving.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you.
I love that.
Real story.
Yeah, wishing for more and wishing for more for other people, and I love that.
Thanks, Maureen. That's so nice of you.
That's a beautiful poem.
Thank you.
And I have many, many days I've spent at Family Dollar. So
we all
have. Yes.
Well, and then I'll read a couple of real tiny little ones. I decided to try a pechacucha. Do you know about the pechacucha form?
I love the word.
Yeah, I do too. It's really cool. I was introduced to it through a fantastic poem by Terrence Hayes. And I can't remember the title of it, but it has pechacucha in it, I'm pretty sure. So the pechacucha is, in a way, an ekphrastic poem. It has 20 parts. Each part, you should envision each part like a PowerPoint slide. So there's some sort of a visual that you're playing off of with your tiny little poem. In Terrence Hayes's poem, he keyed every one of these 20 parts to a sculpture by a sculptor that he really loved. But I chose, again, these little vintage photos. This was before we did the anthology. I chose some vintage photos by the Burgert brothers. So I'm just going to read 3 of these. It's a 20-part poem. The first one is based on a picture of the Hillsborough River in 1920. Back when we counted all the animals on the banks, snapping turtle, hoot owl, anhinga, little possum, otters swam their rap, manatees drifted in river jazz. What can you say of home? Just press on it, a good hurt. Press on it over and over.
That's so rich. What a lovely poem.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So the second one ended up being even more timely now than it was when I wrote it. It's based on a 1921 photo of the Confederate monument that was situated until recently, like last year, right in front of the county courthouse.
Wow.
1921. In Courthouse Square, they sang Dixie and cheered. The marble rebels stood guard, staring down black folks hoping for fair trials. We always knew why it was put there, as if justice really were part of the lost cause.
These poems have such depth.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're very sweet.
They do. They're very visual. Like I can see this, and then, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did publish the pictures in the book, and they won't come across very well on the screen, but there's the river and there's the marble, thing. I'll read one more, and then I'll read you a couple of dailies. Okay. This last one is about Bayshore Boulevard. It's the scene of Bayshore Boulevard in 1925. First, it was just crushed shell snaking through Palmetto. Now, the world's longest sidewalk. Weekends, we make it our own. We run and pedal towards sundown, the brine of Hillsborough Bay urging us faster towards whatever's everlasting. Okay, so now I'm going to do a couple of these dailies for you.
Okay.
And I want you to see how little they are. I don't know if you can see it. There's the first one, 10-1.
Yeah.
Here's 10-2. But of course, by the time you get to the end of the month, you've got 31 days and 10 is 41 words. It gets bigger. Okay, so I'm just going to read a couple. These first couple were set in the Blue Ridge Mountains. We were lucky enough to get out into the mountains for a couple of days in October. 10-1. Leaves goldening, but not enough to block the wild boar world. 10-2. How distant it seems, that night toasting friendship on a glittering riverbank. I mean, when you look back from October all the way to March, it's a long way.
Yeah.
10-10. Wild turkeys step down mountain steepness, upright as ministers. Their combs disappear last, fall in dominoes. Elsewhere, the news plays out.
Oh gosh, I love that. I got goosebumps. Yeah.
Thank you. This one is 10-20. Early voting, mail-in ballot drop-off day. A squall of showers drenches West Tampa Library. Poll workers are ready, eager, smiling. Lone white man stomps off huffing without a mask.
Oh, you're saying so much. I think you're selling short. Like you're saying so much in these. Yeah.
Do we have time for a couple more?
Yeah.
Okay. So my good friend Phyllis McEwen, unfortunately, did get COVID, and she was in the hospital for quite a while, and finally came back home. That was in Atlanta, and came back home to Tampa at the end of the month. So there are a couple of these for her. This one is 1029. So again, this is 39 words. This plague nearly buried you. You tell a horror story of gasps, tubes, collapses, a plea not to die in front of your mother. They turned you face down for nearly a month. The coma, so technicolor, you flew.
Oh,
and then 1030. Don't be scared when you see me, you said. It's been months. COVID, your captors finally vanquished. I look old, lost my hair. Then you undo the lock. All I see is you resurrected. You're glittering, brilliant behind your mask.
I love that.
Thank you.
Lovely. These are lovely. They are so political, and they are so timely and relevant, and even I think it's just the short form. It's not, you're doing. Oh, I love them. I love the turkeys and the ministers. While the rest of the world is just like, I mean, it especially being a visual person, it's like, lovely.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gianna, for being
here
welcome. And all your wisdom you gave us. And thank you for what you're doing for our, the city of Tampa and Tampa Bay. And I appreciate you and your time.
Thank you for all you do. You're a powerhouse, and we appreciate you, and we appreciate your time and energy, and the beauty that you're bringing to all of us.
Oh, well, thank you. It's my pleasure. It's fun.
It is fun. I get it. It's fun.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us for Typewriter Talks. We'll be back next week. If you want to know more about Keep St. Pete Lit, you can go to keepstpetelit.org. We have writing classes online, and we also have virtual meetups and book clubs and poetry open mics, and lots of wonderful, cool events that we're trying to be innovative during this crazy COVID time. So again, thank you, Gianna.
And thank you too.
Please tune in with us next week. All right.